Hey, Craig, let's get into some coffee talk.
Hey, I love it. I love doing some coffee talk.
Well, talk about what?
Dogs, daughters, whatever. It's coffee talk.
Coffee talk.
Mr. Craig, I don't have my coffee talk mug.
I don't know.
Dang
I
it.
have a flashlight that looks a little bit like a mug.
Well, there you go.
That's not.
Don't fill
There
it
you
up
have
with coffee.
That's a coffee talk.
Dude, this week was crazy, right?
Crazy. Crazy. You know, I think every week in 2020 is a little crazy, Jason.
Or is it so maybe this week was so normally sane, right? To compare.
Mm,
Maybe it
maybe.
actually was. Anyways, who did we have on earlier this week, Mr. Craig?
Oh, Randy Thompson, the cowboy from
So
Wyoming.
good.
Yeah. Oh, it was awesome. Awesome. And he works for he represents a big carrier,
A big one. Yeah.
really
Captive.
big, maybe the biggest
Perhaps.
by a long
Perhaps.
shot. Maybe, maybe not.
It's interesting. Everybody comes back from like different walks of life into the old insurance game, and he was an
Mhm.
actual coach, which
Yeah.
really helps him and his team, I would say, right?
Yeah. And a teacher, right?
And a teacher, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
those skill sets, especially in the insurance game, can really be a game changer.
Ooh,
Wouldn't you
true
say?
story. Yeah. Well, I think what do you think are some of the traits that make somebody a good coach? Some patience. You got to have
Definitely,
patience. Yeah.
yeah.
Stories. Got to tell stories.
Tell stories, yeah, because that makes it relatable for sure.
Hmm.
Um,
Accountability.
yeah, and I would say a big part is empathy. Like you have to know
Yeah.
where the people that you are coaching are coming from and empathize with their situation, not your situation. Like you can't ever get um, your team. You should never expect your team to understand where you come from. You need to understand where they come from and then empathize with that. Because yeah, it's I've worked on a lot of teams. I mean, I've been an employee most of my life. I did have my own businesses, a little bits and pieces throughout that, but nothing like been an employee most of my life on teams, on really good teams and some really bad teams,
Mm.
and I probably stayed as an employee longer than I should have because I enjoyed some of those teams so much. I
Sure.
really like that team aspect, and I think, um, the last team that I was on before the agency was one team that was very hard for me to leave, and uh, we became very close with the owner. And as the company grew and multiple locations and everything, um, he he never wavered in the empathy level of where we were. Like the conversations were very uh, close, and I knew his head was in all these other spots, and we're talking multi-million dollar deals and all kinds of craziness, but he was able to come down and really relate, and it made a huge impact on his business.
Mm.
Really cool to see.
Yeah. Well, that empathy creates that connection, right? And then
Yeah,
if there's connection, then there's trust, and then everybody's going for the same common goal. So I
yeah,
think that coach has to have that vision to help lead them to whatever the championship is. If it's in the business, the championship is the big bonus or whatever it is, right?
yeah,
Maybe whatever the goal is. Maybe for the staff, it's not the bonus, but it's some trip or whatever. And that's another important thing is with your staff. We get into this thing because we're business owners, we're driven by money, and because we need the cash flow to run the business, right? And so we can sometimes get pretty hyper focused on the cash when that may not be the ultimate motivator for all of the different team members, and that's come up a
totally.
lot in the podcast from many guests. Um, I think one of the stories he told that I thought was just fascinating, and I actually used in uh, at one of my meetings with my team was when because he was a wrestling coach. You
Yep.
remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And his captain, the senior captain was the state champion. Really kicked butt, was undefeated, I think, his whole high school career. And then what happened? He hurt himself. And I guess in wrestling, just like anything else, there's a lot of repetition, and that's what gets you good at doing what you do. Doing these moves over and over and over. And this guy had to sit out because he pulled his whatever, right? Hurt his knee or something. And so he had to sit on the sidelines for a week and a half. Once he got cleared, they went to this big meet. He ends up losing to a freshman in the first match. And then the second match loses to another freshman. And then the whole team fell apart. And it just tells you, I mean, how important is that whole team environment, and
Totally.
it was interesting, so we talked about that in our staff meeting too, whether it's the producers or whether it's the telemarketers or all of the different components. Everybody has their role, and everybody's role is just so important to the functionality of that team.
Yep. And it's cyclical, right? You see it in sports teams or whatever. It's cyclical. You see like when the Lakers won, they kept winning. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then when they're out of it, it's such a long road to get back to that point, because it really is a mental game. It's you have to believe it. So like almost our goal of this as coaches and leaders is to make them believe they can do it. You know what I mean? And when you're all doing it, super easy. But when you're not, you got to even if you don't believe, you have to be irrationally optimistic. You know what I mean? Especially if you're on an agency that maybe has not performed very high in the past. You have to be irrationally optimistic and know that you can do it. And even if you don't, you got to make your staff believe they can do it. Because if they believe they can do it, then they can. If they don't think they can, they definitely won't.
They won't.
You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things where if they believe they can, there is a good shot that they can. But if they believe they can't, there is not 1% chance that they're ever going to make it. It all starts with belief.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the kid, the senior getting beat by two freshmen, nobody else can win because they're like, well, he got beat. These guys must be the best, and the team wasn't even that great, or the wrestling club, and so it's very interesting. The same, it'll happen. I'm sure you see it in you have, we have ups and downs in sales,
Sure,
and we have great months. And then it's so interesting how you can have just the best month ever. And then the next month is, because I think they thought it was so easy and they didn't think about all of the work it took to get to that point. And so then you coast because everything's going so great. And then all of a sudden things start falling off and you're not closing deals because you thought you were really good at it, but now you're not doing the fundamentals and it starts to go sideways. Then they get in their head. And it's like you have to rebuild it. And from my vantage, like if I don't go in and coach my team, to bring it back to coaching, you always see a difference, because they start getting in their head. They start missing on deals that they should have closed. And so many of these calls that they have when they're doing 10 calls a day from 10 transfers or whatever, there is so many little micro pieces of those conversations where if they had just said a couple things differently, it would have gone a different direction.
Game changer. Yeah.
Game changer.
It's always the details.
Yeah. Those details in those calls are what make the difference, because a lot of times, what do they say? Yeah, you know what? Never mind. It's pretty close. I'm just going to stick with where I am.
Right.
Right. And then they let them go. Okay. I'll call you in 6 months.
Yeah.
You just spend an hour with them. Why would you do that? You got to fight for it. And so helping them. Yeah.
Yeah. And because it is those details, you can't always see when you're in the weeds, you can't always see that aerial view of it. So they need a coach to be able to go, oh, okay, just do these couple tweaks. They'll do it. And then all of a sudden, boom, they're selling. They have that, their morale's up. They know they can do it. And then that's it. And
Yeah.
I was just thinking, I mean, it's like, so your staff needs coaching, but we also need coaching, right?
Mhm.
Coaches need coaching. Like
Oh yeah.
everybody needs coaching because it
Yeah.
helps take you out of the weeds and to
Hmm.
see it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, the coaches are imperative to success. I don't think I mean, if you think about it, like us as like, let's go even higher view. Us as agency owners or business owners or whatever, we need coaches. Like,
Mm.
think about it.
Yep.
What team has ever in any sports has ever won without a coach? I don't think anyone. You know what I mean?
No.
Because the players are in the field. They're in the field and they've got their eyes on the immediate, right? Where the
Yep.
coach can see the big picture. Like
Yep.
if you're in the weeds, you cannot see the big picture. You got to
No.
have someone hold
Well, you're
you
reacting.
accountable to the
It's
Yeah.
like instant reaction and instinct. And if you haven't trained,
Yep.
then you're not going to respond correctly in all of the situations. And you're not always going to respond correctly to everything, but you're
Right.
going to respond more correctly more often if you've trained for all of the different scenarios.
Yep.
And that's what takes you there. It is interesting. And you and I started this whole thing, this podcast, somewhat selfishly because we wanted to talk to all of the agents who are winning.
Yep.
You know, so we could be coached. I mean, every week we get coached 3 times.
Yep.
Robin Sharma, Garrett White. I mean, and Garrett White's coming back.
Ooh, did you just
Mm.
throw a tease out there? You're such a tease,
little
Mr. Craig.
tease. You wake up, warrior. So,
I'm excited about that one.
that's
It's
going
gonna
to
be
be
so
fun.
fire, unreal.
Yeah, yeah. But this one, Randy brought the fire. So if you haven't listened to this episode, you got to play it. It dropped on Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday, new format.
Yeah, so
New
we
format.
we flipped the script on this bad boy. And
Yep.
what do we got? Mondays is going to be your motivational Mondays. If
Which
you
they
were
just
listening,
listened to.
yeah, you listened to that on Monday. And
Yeah.
if you didn't, then what do you need to do? Subscribe, and you will get a notification that'll tell you to do it. That's going to be quick, 5-10 minutes. So you're not on for an
Yep.
hour, you know. But we're gonna pick you up with some fire first thing Monday.
And it goes back to coaching. We want those Mondays to come out of the gate with some motivation to take on the week. That's what we do. So that's why we're kind of changing the format, because it makes sense. Like, we're going to come out of the gates blazing. We'll get some inspiration from another agent or business owner yes. Ooh, motivation, inspiration, and recapitalization.
Recalibration
Recalibration.
in this nation. It'll be great. And then Wednesdays will be the actual interview. So if you missed Randy, just rewind back to the previous episode. Randy Thompson, agent up in Wyoming. Hopefully we have some good cowboy music for the intro there. And yeah.
Cool.
And this is
good.
Coffee Talk on Fridays. We're going to recap
Coffee Talk on Fridays.
Yeah. Talk
Hit
about
the weekend hard.
Yeah.
Have fun, but also set yourself up for next week.
Yeah.
Because if you without planning, you're not going to get much done.
Yeah. The 6 P's. Proper planning prevents piss poor performance. That's the
like
6
that.
P's.
I didn't know about the 6 P's.
Yeah.
If I drink a few of these big water bottles, I'll have the 6 P's. I think they might be a little different though.
6 P's. Yeah.
All right, we got to
That's
get
good
out
for
of here.
you though. Yeah.
It is.
All
right.
You have a great weekend.
Great
Mr.
weekend.
Jason.
Coffee talk.
It's coffee talk.
Coffee talk.
Coffee talk.
Hey, you've got to check out the Insurance Dude's Inner Circle coming soon, where you get extended interviews as well as live coffee talks in our private Facebook group. Join the mailing list today at theinsurancedudespodcast.com. Hey, thanks for checking out The Insurance Dudes. Hey, please subscribe. We got some really great stuff coming out.